Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
We haven't had a chance to meet before, but I've heard lots of wonderful things about you from Chuck and from Amy Austin over the years.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Well, they embellish.
Shows up on time, a nice guy, and then we just start working the list, man.
Usually smelled okay. So that was good.
Yes. That's what first time I met him, walked in the door and he said, you are a good smelling lad. No, I don't know. One of the things that I always tell people about you is you were in a weird situation at the time, at KNUE. You came in and you were a wonderful team player and we just adored you for it. It was kind of an interesting time because, with John Moore leaving, it was, not so much us, but the sales department was just totally freaking and everything too. So
it was unusual to come in behind somebody that was the heritage #1 morning show guy in that community. And he had his way of doing things. And originally they wanted me to do things that John did. And he did very well, but they weren't my strengths. And I tried them for a little while, but then I realized I just got to go my own way. Luckily, KNUE was such a powerhouse then, and country music was so powerful then I couldn't mess it up.
Was it something, John, did they want you to do like the gag phone call in the morning?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I tried, but that's just not my wheelhouse. I'm not at all comfortable doing that.
Our guest this morning on the Unknown Morning Show, it's John Morris. John is with SiriusXM.
John Moore?
Did I say Moore?
Or did you say Morris?
I said John Morris, didn't I?
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
Apologies. I have a headache this morning.
She has a headache.
It's not working.
Okay, we've had a couple
I'll
issues.
let you reset.
There's a headache issue. The coffee maker wasn't working, so we've barely had any coffee. We both have issues today.
I apologize, John. This is not my best self.
No, it's like, and most people, it's like,
and I never have my best one.
When I was in Tyler, I was John Q. And then
yes.
Also I've been Trapper ever since Indianapolis. But it was really weird. If I had gone by John Morris, that would have confused people back in the day.
Well, it certainly confused me this morning, so I apologize.
Well, it's like I said, it was something to where, as you said, John Moore leaves the station. The morning show is this big powerhouse. The station is a powerhouse. Salespeople are freaking. And when you come in, you're a little bit different in terms of hair's kind of long. Your vibe is a little bit looser because, Chaney's Place, he has a pretty tight ship, real tight ship. But you come in and you do your thing. And I was telling Mandee, I said, I don't know really how the dates were, but I think John was kind of doing a Young Country delivery before Young Country. Am I right in that, or are my ears off, do you think?
I don't know. Maybe I was unintentionally, but more than anything else, what I did was just more listener based. I was really into, the listener interaction and also interacting with Dave Goldman, who was a great unintentional morning show partner.
Dave is terrific. We've been trying to get him on here for a while, too. The thing that we learned, and I remember Amy Austin, the program director, one of my all-time favorite people. So you're moving in. She goes to, and at that time, I think John Moore had been doing most of the remotes because, you play to your strengths, and I get that. And she went to sales and said, okay, everybody does remotes. And then she comes back to us and, all of us and says, okay, you guys have got to kiss babies and get out there. You can't sit on your butts. She was talking to the nights and overnight guys. You guys got to go and really work the crowd and do this. And that's what I've always loved about Amy. I mean, and she never did it in a way that was like, what's the word? Being an a-hole or anything. She just presented the facts in her Amy style. Sugar, I need you to do this,
And some people didn't always appreciate, like, her peers and the people that were working for her when she was program director got it and would run through walls for her.
Yeah.
the suits didn't always appreciate Amy because she was headstrong and she would tell them exactly what she was thinking. And she was fearless and tireless. She's one of the hardest working people I ever worked with.
Amen.
And the other thing is, she is a woman. hey, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's because I think we're doing a count, maybe 4 or 5 active female PDs in the market over 40 years around here.
Yeah.
And I think she was one of the first really, 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 really actives, you know, in the business. But it was so interesting because you were with us, only a year and a half?
A year, yeah.
And then you went on to Don Chaney's property in Waco, correct?
Correct.
You were programming. I think you did mornings there too.
I went there to be the morning guy because Ray Eller, our old sales manager in Tyler, had taken over as the general manager in Waco, and thought it would be good since I'd come from Waco that I would be able to come back there and have some legacy in that market. I was there for a few years. First, I was just the morning guy. I became the program director. But that station had some signal deficiencies. And my previous station in Waco was also a flame-throwing heritage station.
Was that WACO? Was that yeah?
Yeah. Wow. So they were really hard to make inroads against. And I gave it a shot for a few years. But then I was given a really great opportunity to go to Indianapolis after that. We
have a good friend that just opened up a new frequency in the market. Michael Storma has a station in Jacksonville, 95.1 FM. And we kind of slid it gently over and said, it takes a while for people to discover, newness, like a couple of years, maybe even to do this, So, and he has something where he's doing like an oldies format that's like 80s and 90s, which has been it's a nice update, So you said did you go to Indy after Waco?
I did. After the second term.
Second term.
Waco.
And so that's when you're Trapper John. So how did that get going? How did that...
When I got to Indianapolis, Sam McGuire, who was the programmer that hired me at KNUE, was programming the station in Indianapolis. But the station was definitely more of a young country kind of delivery. And it was called The Bear. And it was much like the Froggy stations. Everybody had a thematic name. So I'm coming in as John Q. and well, that's just not going to work. So we got to come up with a bear name for you. And so we just were just throwing out random words and phrases, and Bear Trap came along, and somebody said Trapper John, and then so I became Trapper from that point on.
I don't want to be called Grizzly. Trapper is it.
We already had it.
You had one, yeah. Probably a Grizzly Adams, I'm thinking, right?
We had a Grizzly Adams. Sam was Gentle Ben. We had Deborah Honeycutt. We had Vicky Cub, Donnie Claw. And then we had some names that were low-hanging fruit, like Steve Barris and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun experience. Yeah. I've never worked on a station that was that thematic. What was that like?
It was fun. Especially for what we were doing, we were designed to be a flanker for the mothership country station.
Okay.
And we got to the point where we were so dialed in that our numbers were getting so good, they were kind of concerned that we were going to harm the mothership. And eventually they acquired another frequency, and they put us on that frequency. And it was not market grade. And so action, but we weren't going to be cannibalizing the mothership anymore.
Welcome to the world of 100-watt radio, huh?
Yeah,
wow.
Well, yeah, it wasn't quite 100 watts, but it was a challenge. It's just having that rug pulled out from me. And they announced that the week after they made me program director.
Oh, man.
Gut punch. Yes, I'm program director. Oh.
My kick me sign has been affixed to my back. Thank you so much, management. So KSCS, you worked with Terry Dorsey at KSCS. What's that like? I mean, there's market legends, and there's market legends capitalized in neon. What's it like?
With Terry Dorsey, you couldn't ask for a more genuine, nice human being. If I had to go work with a radio legend, there's probably numerous horror stories out there, but Terry's the kind of guy that welcomes you right in. He may not remember your name immediately, because that's kind of
Yeah.
He welcomed you right in. And when I first started at KSCS, I wasn't part of the morning show, but it sort of evolved. At first, I was a temporary stopgap board op and became kind of the de facto producer and third chair on the show. And like to think I became a valuable member of that show, and all the way up until Terry's retirement. And then, I stayed beyond. But Terry was I so value the fact that I got to work with Terry, and Hawkeye too. I mean, he's a legend in his own right.
Yeah, Mark. It's when you were saying producer, so like when Terry said, get me, for instance, Faith Hill, you were the person that had to call the company, call management and get that scheduled, right?
Well, Terry wasn't the kind of guy that really relished going after artist interviews, but it might be something that happened in the news or some quirky story where I would get somebody in, the gas station attendant for the kicker story out of Topeka, and I would get him on the phone so that with them. But Terry didn't really, mostly he took what came to us, when they were like, this artist is doing radio interviews. Do you want them? Sure, we want them. Mm-hmm. But he didn't really task me with going after those.
Buy me a cup of coffee, Mandee.
Yeah.
I've seen that on other podcasts. That's literally...
Yeah, it's like a virtual tip jar. It's really that simple. So you go to the show notes, click Buy Me a Coffee, and then you have an opportunity to support the show in any way you like. Imagine yourself going to coffee with Chuck and myself and saying, hey, I like what you do on the show. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee. Only all you have to do is click a link. It's that simple.
When we were talking to J.R. Schumann, what was it, about a month ago?
Yeah, maybe a little longer.
He had some terrific stories, when he was ops over there working with Dorsey. And I just think that it sounded like Terry's whole, I guess I'm trying to say this, his whole body was kind of like, just don't take my mic away and we'll be just fine. I'll adjust to any situations, which says old pro all over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, as long as, you didn't really have expectations for him to, you didn't throw like extra duties at Terry. Like, you didn't say, hey, stay after, we want to do a meeting, because Terry'd be like, yeah, no, sorry, pal, got to go, And so we get off the air at 10, by 9:59, he's hitting the elevator.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How long were you at KSCS?
9 years.
Were you K-Plex too? Was K-Plex the same building?
No, I was strictly KSCS, but I got hired there right after I left New Orleans. I worked for Citadel in New Orleans, and it wasn't working out. So I was like, I am just going to reset. I'm going to go back to Dallas, which is my hometown, and I'll figure something out. But I just can't deal with the situation. Just wasn't right. And I went back, and within a couple of weeks, I got hired by Citadel to do weekends for KSCS, and eventually became, the de facto midday person. And then I was in production for a while. And again, I did almost every day part on the channel, even voice tracked a show on Real Country for Westwood One while I was there.
And that's a valuable thing, when you get your hands into everything in all parts of the meatloaf, so to speak. I've been really fortunate, I guess my last decade, not doing music radio. I did sports talk for about 3 years and then moved over to news with KTBB. And at the time, my feeling was, do you have a mic and can I be at your radio station? But as it's gone along, it's just been, you learn stuff. And I didn't know anything about news, but I had people like John Sims, Melissa Kaiser, and I would just watch and ask questions and, to where I would go and how I would try to, fix things. And even, yesterday we were in the newsroom with Roger Gray. I was asking him about, I have to build the 5 o'clock news hour. And I was saying there was a big story that was breaking. And I said, okay, the networks will do it 3 times. I'm going to give you 2 stories. Do you think that's enough? Am I okay here? And Roger, oh yeah, sure. And so, I have no problem sometimes talking to people that have a hell of a lot more experience in my trade and say, what are we going to do to make this work?
Guys like you and I, Chuck, I count myself very fortunate that I've made a living in this business for as long as I have. And I'm sure probably the same. And yeah, we'll do what it takes. There was that period of time that I did talk radio for 2 years, and I was not real good at it.
Well, did you do straight talk? You know what I mean? Or news talk or sports?
It was news talk.
Oh, what did you do?
And we had a morning show in Indianapolis, and we had my co-host was the arch conservative, and I was the progressive, and we kind of talked to the issues of the day. And this was right at the beginning of the Persian Gulf War.
Whoa.
So a pretty happening time for that. But I just decided, especially because I was in a red state, and wearing the black hat is just not my MO. I don't like. I'm about like happy talk. I want to make people happy. I don't want to be the bad guy. So we did that for a couple of years. And then, you mentioned news. I did virtual news for a while for a company that provides newscasts for small market stations.
Oh.
And I wrote and produced newscasts for tiny little towns all over the country. But it was a grind. I didn't do that very long because it was tough.
I'm just amazed at how, the variety of things that you've done.
It's been fun. I mean,
yeah.
Some things more fun than others, but to try different things is fun. And, to be able to look back and say, I left it all on the field,
For sure.
Hopefully that's what they'll say about me.
I just have so much respect for it because sometimes you meet radio personalities that kind of get in their lane and they stay in it. Mm-hmm. And they don't necessarily you've done production, you've produced a morning show, you've done news talk, you've done music, you've done so many things. So you really understand the industry and you're coming at it from a different perspective than maybe somebody who's been a heritage morning talker for 30 years on the same station in the same city, which is also cool. But I don't know. I think what you've done is a little bit more interesting personally.
Thank you. And,
You're welcome.
Just the way the business has changed over the course of the last 4 decades. Chuck and I come from an era where the countdown would come in on vinyl, and play Bob Kingsley's Countdown on vinyl on the weekend. It's changed quite a bit, and all the way down to where we are now. When I went to SiriusXM, the approach to music was so different, and you kind of had to learn a new paradigm. And now with streaming and how that comes into play, it's a way different way of looking at the music that you're going to play.
How long have you been with SiriusXM, John?
It has been a tad over 7 years.
So, and you were talking about, Mandee and I can talk about, music coming out of the box, right? Mm-hmm. Coming out of the box and everything. So when you're dealing with a new artist or artist in general, are you thinking about what streaming platform? How does that? I mean, I don't know if I'm expressing myself correctly, but is it something to where do you have a different way of dealing with an artist as far as maybe if they're on YouTube versus Apple? You know what I mean?
Are you talking about where you find new artists versus just getting a record rep sending it to you and it being the obvious thing? Or are you talking about developing artists where you're finding them and where you're finding new music and trending music? I guess what I'm talking about is it different as far as on air? Is the on air different in streaming versus being just terrestrial radio? That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you for translating.
For us, it's still radio. It's just we have the advantage that we don't have to play commercials. Mm-hmm. Our company is very dedicated to being a music discovery platform. Mm-hmm. So, it's very encouraged. But we can take chances with music. We don't have to worry so much about playing the wrong song because we don't have 15 minutes of commercials that are going to create potential tune out. So if we have a song that people don't like, we do research and we'll find out if people don't like it, but we can take some chances. But, getting back to the point about something being out of the box, where terrestrial radio it's the song out of the box. For us, it's out of the oven. So a lot of times it's before terrestrial radio knows it exists. We are exposed to a lot of music because we get it, very early. We examine what's going out to the DSPs. We also have a lot of management relationships. So we know a lot of the music that's coming, and a lot of music sometimes from unsigned artists. And then we use the data, the consumption data, when stuff gets out there, when it is on DSPs. For us now, and this is one of the things that's changed so much, is that we can kind of see what is resonating with people. And, we can make a very educated, it's not even quite a guess, but an educated decision based on the way people are excited about a song. Russell Dickerson dropped a new song on DSPs last week and had 2 million streams over the weekend.
Oh.
So we're like, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So,
that beats the old thing where what I used to do is I would send a sheet of our top 40 entries to a record shop. I would ask them to make some comments, and I'd swap them out with some tickets occasionally. And I never was looking for like hard data. I was looking for kind of a flow and go, oh, this song is happening, or maybe there's something new that's out there. This Martina McBride girl, I think she's going to be something. And a lot of that I had it set up to where I could take that internal data from the station, like requests and stuff, and use it for one thing. And that's so I could justify it to a consultant and say, right, look, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. Because I always feel that consultants have this kind of, not so much good or bad rap, but I think it's kind of like, if you're a radio station that doesn't know anything and your people maybe are really, really new and green, that's where the consultant comes in.
Yeah.
If not, it's overmanaged. You don't need them. And I've been in situations in both where, you had to do the weekly calls and everything. And then I've had it to where they just said, you don't need to call me. And I go, oh, all right, that's great. That's wonderful. So do you have two stations that you're working now in Sirius?
I do. I program the Highway, which is the new country station, and then I program Y2 Country, which is an Era's channel from right now. It's 2000 through 2019. Oh,
so it's almost like it's like new oldies.
Yeah, it's with SiriusXM, we try not to leave an era of country unrepresented.
Okay.
So, we go back to, I guess it's probably as early as the 50s on Willie's Roadhouse. Prime country is 80s and 90s. So, Y2 country, originally was just the 2000s. But as the highway has progressed down the road, we just didn't want those intervening years to be unrepresented. So we've expanded Y2 country to where it's nearly 2 decades now. And then we play a small smattering of current songs on Y2 Country, only 6 of them at any given time.
Oh, okay. I love what I did. I've only programmed once. It was KKUS, and we were classic country, but it was something to where I felt strongly that we could play everything from the 50s, scraping into maybe
early 90s
easily. And
kind of before Garth electrified things, right?
Yeah. And I said at the time, I felt it was like alternative for older folks. And I love the whole concept of, because one of the things I hate about oldies stations is if your oldies library is 300 songs and they get ground into the ground, and because oldies, you should be able to sit there and trick it out with alternative versions. You should be able to really play around. And when we were at the ranch, we did. We did a combination of that and community stuff, and it worked really well. At least for us, it worked really, really well. It was a good time. It was a terrific time.
And with that limited music library, if you're really good with, whether it's Selector, Music Master, whatever your music scheduling software is, and it's another thing that's drilled into our heads all the time, perceived repetition, right? So that's just trying to make sure that your songs are rotating really well through the day so that somebody listening at 6 a.m. on their drive to work is not going to hear the same songs, Monday, anytime probably during that week on an oldies channel. It'll be a different experience every time, even though it's still the same songs.
Sure. And sometimes your brain, I've sat there and been listening to things in market here. I'll hear like, pour some sugar on me. And I go, didn't I just hear that? Or maybe I just heard it on 96, or maybe I heard it on the Jack station, or whatever,
Yeah. And multiply that now by all of the audio sources that we have.
Right.
And you might have perceived repetition just because you've listened to, 2 or 3 different streaming platforms, 2 or 3 different radio stations.
That's interesting, John. I listen to Sirius pretty regularly. I'm not as much into country, but I'm going to have to listen just because now I want to support you. But I listen.
What are your channels?
I listen to the 10 spot.
Okay.
Which it sounds like it's similar to Y2 country because it's like
it's the 2010s. Yeah,
the 2010s in pop, and I was on Mix 93.1 here locally playing a lot of that music during that time, so it feels very comfortable and familiar to me. I listen to that one a lot. I listen to Alt Nation, and I listen to I'm going to get it wrong.
Madison on Alt Nation is one of my favorites.
Oh, I've been listening to her off and on for probably 20 years on that station. She's incredible.
So amazing, yeah.
But when you're talking about perceived repetition, there's some crossover there because I'm listening to 2010s, I listen to Alt Nation, and I listen to pop rocks. And so there's some songs that kind of filter through there. So sometimes I'll be like, did I just hear that song? But it's because I flipped through. And with you guys, that's got to be such a challenge too, because you're across the country. Yeah. So your day parts, I mean, it's fun to listen to Madison too, because she's like, it might be morning, it might be afternoon where you are, but here I am, like.
Well, and one thing we are cognizant of is the stations, the channels that we have that play similar music, and we have reports that are generated every day to tell us when we have a song on one channel playing too close to that same song on another channel. And the idea is to try to, massage it so that, there'll be a little bit more spread there, you know, but one thing that we try to avoid is, where you're switching from one channel to another on SiriusXM and hearing the exact same song immediately.
I've never heard it. And I probably would hear it from my programming brain and my music brain of listening to stations for years. I think I would have probably been like, oh my gosh, like that's a fail, like what are they doing? But I enjoy hearing some of the same songs across those stations being used differently, sonically they fit differently against other music and artists. And it's been interesting. I've listened a lot probably in the last year and have really enjoyed the stations. I think they're programmed really well.
Love that.
Yeah.
I want to tell all of those programs.
Yeah, please do. Please do. I'm a fan. I really, really enjoy it. I was like, Chuck, I felt like you were going to jump in.
I was listening and I was trying to, I don't know where I'm going to pick up. I don't know where I'm going to pick up on
That's
this.
okay. You don't listen to Satellite, do you?
I don't.
I was listening to your conversation with JR, and at some point you guys mentioned Sunny, and it mentioned the Waller stations. I didn't realize the Waller stations had gotten bought out, but I came this close, Chuck, to a return to Tyler.
Really?
Back in like 2000. It would have been right around that time. It was in 2004.
Oh, yeah.
Right after I finished the talk radio gig. And so I'd left Entercom. And so I was looking for the next thing. I had been visiting family down in Texas, and I talked to Amy, and she had said Sonny might be looking for somebody. And so I can go by there. I can run out to Jacksonville and meet. So I met with Dudley and had a nice meeting with him, and he and I hit it off really well. And it was going to come down to, I don't know if I can work at Sunny for what was probably available salary wise. We hadn't really talked about that. And in that intervening time, I ended up having an interview in Memphis and ended up taking that job. But I came pretty close, and Dudley was a charming guy.
Dudley's a nice guy.
He was. I didn't get to work in the Jacksonville office. By the time I came on board with Sunny, they had been absorbed into the Tyler cluster and were downtown. And that was a really interesting experience because, Dave Moreland, such a great program director, Heritage Morning guy, had during that breakdown of Access One purchasing the Waller stations, Dave stayed with Waller. And so he didn't come with the station. And I think Paul Harvey didn't come with the station. And there were all these benchmark pieces that people really held on to that were part of their routines that were missing when Access One bought it and they started rebranding it. And it was such a good example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it situation, because Charlie O'Douglas and Amy Austin were the morning team, and they were great, but they weren't Dave Moreland. And they were changing so many other pieces of the station at the same time that it was like people just abandoned it. And it was such a weird time to work on that station after it had been such a heritage, like everybody had it on, and every doctor's office in East Texas had that station on for years and years. And then the brighter they made it, the more pop and hot AC that they made that station, the less offices had it. And it was just really strange to sort of be on the downhill slide of that one.
I mean, everybody made the mistake on it because you'd go, oh, right, okay, they're not going to play Jim Brickman anymore. Excellent. They wanted Jim Brickman. They want that comfort. They wanted the musical version of Peanut Butter and Jelly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with that, and with calming personalities that just scream, I'm your friend. I'm here. Here's some Jim Brickman. So, and it's like my old station, KKUS, Big D and Bubba. Big D and Bubba left. Well, they were taken off KNUE. They were picked up at KKUS, which is classic country. So they have them in mornings, and my gosh, over 4-book, it's gone from, they had the station was 1-8 this past. They haven't been a 1-8 in probably
20 years.
Oh, 25 years.
Yeah.
Even when the transition happened, I think in 2000 maybe, it was a 2-2, because I remember I was there, and so we were sitting there, we put the ranch on, and of course, you're thinking of all these terrific things that are going to happen, but you forget, hey, people aren't going to get to the game plan right away, and it was flat at a 2 share, and it wasn't making money, and next thing you know, I'm on the beach for about 8 months, and other things happen, and I get back there. So radio is a funny damn animal, John. It is funny. And I don't mean
it's funny too when you talk about the ratings numbers too.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of dinosaur I am, Mandee. KKUS was brand new when I was in Tyler.
Yeah.
But that 1 year I was there, Chuck, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like a 1-book a year market.
Yes.
So we had somewhere in the neighborhood of a 20 share on KNUE. I mean, it was just gaudy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the way it was back then. I mean, because, people listened to the radio. There was no internet, and there weren't alternate sources. So radio was a big deal, and KNUE was one of the biggest.
I've told this story before, and this is maybe in 95. And the book comes out, prelims come out, and it's summertime. I'm doing afternoons for some reason. Amy, maybe she just had Chloe. Maybe that was it. She calls me and she says, the numbers are out. I go, okay. We lost 7 points. We had a 13 share. The next station had a 6. And it was just, we were, but still, management was concerned. And, I always tell people, I ask them, have you ever seen a ratings diary? Have you actually read it? It's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Oh, yeah. There was 1 year in Indianapolis that we got this extraordinary bump in Black listenership. And it was only because somebody had transposed a couple of numbers in the diary when they wrote in the frequency.
Oh, wow.
And they had meant to put in like the frequency for a hip hop station, and they put in us instead. And so we ended up getting this nice little bump, among Black males or whatever.
Uh-huh.
It's so wild.
That's why back when you would go to Maryland, and actually you could look at all the diaries at Arbitron back in the day.
At KKUS, we would have about every 3rd book, it would be a bump of 18 to 34-year-old males. I don't know why.
I think I know why. I think they were listening to the ranch out of Dallas, and they were riding down the ranch.
Yeah.
Because it was a young Texas country station. So 18 to 34-year-old males I think that they tend to listen to that. That was, like the Buddy Logan Lone Star Saturday night thing that was here for so long.
Fort Worth.
They're out of Fort Worth. They're right there on Sunday Square.
You couldn't hear the station in Tyler, but they could write it down in the diary.
Exactly. Yeah, you can write anything down in that diary. It's crazy.
Funny animal when we switched to PPM in the Dallas market. And that was right around the time I got to Dallas. You know, they were doing a lot of Texas country, and we had this classic country show Bill Kinder hosted on Saturday night on KSCS. So he came on at 7 p.m. Saturday night, and I think he went to midnight. And it was the show that everybody said they love. Oh, I love Bill Kinder and those country classics. And it was mostly 80s country. It was really great. But once we went to PPM, we found out nobody listened to it. It's everybody's favorite show that nobody listened to.
Wow.
And a lot of stations made a lot of changes to the way they did things because they found out in Seattle, they found out their morning show guy wasn't really that popular. But people were writing him down in the diary, but they weren't really listening to him.
Wow.
That's got to just crush you. I mean, if you're the morning guy or whatever, yikes.
Yeah. For some of those heritage morning guys, they're an institution and people remember their name, and it's great for diary, not always great for PPM.
Yeah, because it's all recall. It's like you were talking about perceived repetition. It's their like brand perception too. So they're going to write down what they remember or what they're thinking about, not necessarily what they just listened to.
Mm-hmm. And in the PPM world, too, there's still so very few meters that are out there that measure the radio listenership and you would get weekly updates, which is just agonizing. Mm-hmm. And you would get like these raw diary numbers a couple of weeks out, and it's like the raw diary number looks good. And you're thinking, oh, we're going to have a really great trend. And then the trend comes out and it's not that good. And you find out that all the raw diary numbers you got were from people that were 85 and above.
Yikes. Oh.
Tackled the 85-year-old demo, but it doesn't really help you in the 25 to 54. So.
No. Wow. So what's it like at Sirius? I don't know how much of this you can share, but I'm just curious. Like, I mean, I wrote down, I filled out a diary. I think I can say this now because it's been so long and the book's already out. I think this was not this last one, but the one before. I actually filled one out because I'm no longer in the business. Okay. And I got one and I thought, okay, well, I can be supportive of my friends and I kept forgetting to do it. And I'm not an unintelligent person. I'm just a busy person.
You're busy.
And I gained so much more appreciation for like how those numbers get tracked. I'm like, no wonder we get such weird responses in these books because the people who are not busy and willing to spend their time writing in these diaries might not be the people we're actually wanting to be listening to our station. Does that sound terrible? But
we used to agonize over, how the clock was set and make sure you're taking your commercial break at 16 after, but not before.
Right.
And you're like, and like the person in that diary is really checking the time. Oh, yep, it's 5:16.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I did write down Sirius because it was like, I'm going to be honest. I've been listening to SiriusXM radio. I listened a lot to Mix 93.1. So those were the two things that I really wrote down in my diary. And I think Mix actually got a little bit of a bump. And I was like, all right, I helped my buddy Lucky Larry out.
Man, the story on clock timing, I got anxiety.
Yeah.
I was working in Charleston, West Virginia, and the PD there was like, it was that. You have to take the break exactly like this. And I'm like, oh, God. And me, I've always felt this. Give them what they want to hear. If you say you're classic country, play it. If you don't do that, well, you could be in trouble.
Yeah.
But I want to say something, Mandee. Regardless of the ranch in Dallas or Fort Worth, every third book, though, we still had beer and ribs. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, no, you were like, I don't know how that happened. And maybe they were listening to us. I hope they were. I'm just thinking if there was any kind of like perceived recall situation, maybe that's where that came from. But no, I was grateful when we got to go have beer and ribs and barbecue for good books.
Total Recall. Was that Schwarzenegger?
Oh, was that what that was? It's like if you had a good book, you went out for beer and ribs.
We did.
Okay.
We did. One year it was Mexican food, and I ended up at the sports bar after and had to have an escort home. And it was, I was in my early 20s working for a classic country station.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was all of like 23 or 24 maybe. And playing Willie and Hank for a living. It was great.
But I've always felt too that, if you work hard every day, that's what the goal is, to work hard every day.
Yeah.
As a program director, that's what I felt was important. I'm working hard. They're working hard. We're going for this objective. I was never one that I felt like I had to yell stuff at people. Let's work hard. Well, that's your job, man. And I counter people that will say, well, they don't work hard. I go, they don't work hard. We're in a business that's dinosauring itself out of existence. You better work hard.
Yeah.
And you better, say, oh, boss, my fingertips are bleeding because I'm writing lead-ins for my news stories and stuff. Damn right I'm working hard.
If you have passion, nobody feels like they have to be told to work hard, because passion will drive you, I think.
What did you put
But
in
it's
this
funny,
coffee?
Mandy's talking about when she was, at these beer and rib parties, and she was younger and she was, having a good time. When I was at KNUE, I was in my 20s. And most of the people around the building were young, because, we had one of the first LMAs with Mix down the hall.
Oh, yeah.
John Thody and Chris Ryan and those guys.
Oh, jeez, yes.
Charlie O was down the hall and everything. And so, we would get out and twist off around Tyler. And, yeah, there was more than a couple of times that I came in the next morning and I think I'm still a little bit drunk.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I think that may have happened with that party. I wore a hat the next day.
Yeah.
And the general manager commented on it as I was walking down the hall. He was laughing, which was kind of funny, because this guy was, I don't know if you met Rick Guest when you interviewed with Dudley Waller, but Rick was very straight-laced, quiet, very serious man. And he was like almost chuckling to himself as he saw me with my hat pulled down low the next morning coming into the office.
How you doing, Mandy?
Yeah.
Good morning, Mandy.
I'm fine.
Well,
fine,
the
Rick.
KNUB had a window to the lobby from the studio.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
So if you were having a bad day, everybody that came in to pick up their prizes or whatever would see you. And that was, Chuck mentioned when I first started there, I had really long hair. And I was hired sight unseen by, and so that very first day I'm on the air and I've got like a Dog the Bounty Hunter style mullet going on. And Don Chaney comes in and he's getting mail and all that stuff. He looks over at the studio through the window and he sees me in there. And I guess he about lost his mind, because I got office right after I got off the air, and they're like, look, this is kind of uncomfortable, but we're going to ask you to get a haircut.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you?
They gave me a whole bunch of Cavender's gift certificates for obliging them on the haircut thing.
Wow.
Okay.
They wanted you to look the part.
Well, they were very conservative.
Yeah.
Like Chuck said, they were very buttoned up. I was very surprised when I first went in there for my interview, and I got, essentially, we filled out the paperwork. I was hired on the spot, and there was like this business office, and everybody's wearing ties, and they had computers and things, and they even had like signed essentially a non-compete there on the spot, and they gave you $100 as your compensation for signing the non-compete right there on the spot.
Wow.
But it was very professional, and something from similar sized markets like Waco and Abilene. I'd never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. They stopped that by the time I got there.
Oh, we had a situation where there was somebody suing. This is like probably 96. They were suing. They were fired and they were suing because of sexual discrimination. So we have this big meeting, and it basically is, look, we have to watch what we say. No dirty jokes, none of this. It's like, what? No dirty jokes. And they said,
what's Chuck going to say?
Yeah. And they said, well, what other F words am I going to use? So, and they said, and they were, if you sit there and if there's an employee that says something that is untoward, you have to report them or you could be fired. And man, it was really uncomfortable for a while. I mean, we got it. But we used to laugh because we'd go into Amy's office and close the door and say, welcome to KNUE, where we have fun behind closed doors. It was just, I mean, and I'm not revealing too much because, well, what are they going to do? Take me out of my house?
I mean, that
Stormtrooper style. Are you Chuck McKinley? No.
That's not what it says on my birth certificate.
Yeah, got to remember that one. Let me write that one down and put it in the book. But but on the other hand, though,
as sweet as pie as Amy was, she was not anywhere near PC enough to avoid any kind of HR intervention.
Nope. Amy was not politically correct. That is 100% correct. She mentored me a lot whenever I was at the ranch because she had been in my position. I took over for her in middays when she moved to mornings on Sunny, but she was still in the building. And she was incredible. I loved working with Amy.
She was a wonderful radio warrior. I think it was about 96, and this is the whole LMA thing is going on. And 107, Mix 107, I think they were Mix at the time, 107, they become number one in the market, right? First time ever.
Wow.
Do you remember Todd Tedder?
God, that name sounds familiar. Is he a
Sales
guy?
manager. Sales manager.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
and he reacted as you would react. Mix is number one. Mix is number one. And he's yelling in the hallway. See, Amy is like, Amy. And I thought she was going to take him apart. I mean, it was like, hey, man.
We've been number one for like 7 years straight or however long.
Yeah. And the story was, too, that I think, I think Michael Storm even said it at the time. Well, we got number one, but we were kind of uncomfortable, because, we're next door to each other. We're, friendly mates upstairs and stuff. And then he was like, oh, we kind of celebrated and kept it down low a little bit because of respect to Amy.
That was so weird back then because it was still very, very new to have them in the building when I got there. And it was not known. That was an unknown commodity to have two radio stations in one building, two stations that were competing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were all pretty good friends. So, we a lot of times hung out together. Sometimes we drank together. Sometimes we got the same endorsement from the same Oldsmobile dealership and all got the same kind of car and put them through their paces on a night of drinking together.
Outstanding.
But really strange because you didn't know how to act. If you had a good book, you didn't want to be like, hey, in your face,
Right.
What did the Oldsmobile dealer say, John? Did you put the car through the paces? Yeah.
I do remember somebody going airborne over a railroad track. And it turned out that the cars that we were all driving, it was this Oldsmobile that was it was a new model for Oldsmobile. And so they were really promoting this new model. And then about, 6 months after we had the cars and everything, this report comes out and they named that car as the most unsafe car in America. Our destinies.
And you could probably say, but guess what? We shook it down a little bit. A lot.
We all I can say, they may be unsafe, but, for us, with what we did to them, we came out unscathed.
Well, back then, too, was the whole lease management thing was so crazy because if I remember, maybe in 94 or something, it was explained to me with KNUE and Mix, I think the deal was they didn't want KNUE to have more than a 20 share because it was something where if the combined numbers with Mix would be, they couldn't buy them or something. It was so strange.
It was an ownership rule, yeah.
And so what happened was we had a 24. They hated us. And we were like, well, too bad. You want more than a 20 share, you got it, partner.
Yeah, wow. That was that thing in that first year, and I don't take credit for it just because KNUE was huge and country was huge at the time. But coming in on the heels of John Moore, who is a very talented, very successful morning guy, and here I am doing something completely different, and I was getting a lot of side eyes from people. We'll see how this works out, and luckily I had a couple of months to get my feet under me before that spring book started. But I knew it was going to be okay when I did this promotion for some concert tickets, and I did a Show Us Your KNUE promotion. And it was just from the morning show. And I had people, it's any way, the most creative way you can, photographic evidence, tell us where it is. We'll come down and see it ourselves or whatever, but show us your KNUE. One guy painted a barn with our logo. And, there was girls in bathing suits out in front of the NBC affiliate out there on the loop that were up signs that said KNUE on them and honk if you love KNUE. I was going out to witness all this stuff, and I was like, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna be able to make it through this. And then it was a spring book, and the numbers again were super gaudy, and it had nothing to do with me. But it's I knew at least I wouldn't be blamed for anything.
But you know what, John, internally, like I said, starting off, you are a wonderful teammate. And, that thing transitions and keeps going down, so to speak. So rolling down the hill, so to speak, rolling up to where, whenever you work, It proves your worth as far as a teammate and what you bring to the table as far as your work ethic and just knowing what you're doing too.
Well, we didn't have anybody on our team back then, whether it was us, KNUE or Mix, that you'd be like, oh, I don't like that guy, or I don't like that person. You know,
No.
I mean, we just had a good group of people.
There were times I would hang around Mick Fulgham just because.
Yeah.
I wanted to just, Mick had coolness to him, and I wanted some of that.
where you work with people and you want to hang out with them after work. That's kind of the way it was. I mean, with Amy and Doug, you know, I mean, we hung out all the time.
Yeah.
Doug would be out there saying, I'm going to show you how to play pool, boy. I'm like, okay.
That's a really good Doug impression.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. Chuck and I started working together in 2005.
Yeah.
So
it was a year before I became PD.
It was, yep. And we have been friends ever since. So 20-year friendship. And, you know, I mean, we spent a lot of working hours together during the time that we were at the ranch. But then when the weird shakedown happened in 2008 and there were so many cuts in the industry, Chuck was a part of that. And so we continued to go to lunch and coffee over the years and started this. I've been trying to get him to do a podcast with me for
It's about 10 years.
About 10 years.
Yeah.
But finally, he's like, what are we going to talk about? And I finally just said, well, why don't we just talk about what we normally talk about when we have coffee? Radio.
Yeah. I did this. I had the same conversation with JR a couple of months ago. I said, you and I should just do a podcast.
You should.
And all we have to do is just talk about the stuff we talk about when we go to Whataburger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's going to be, you know, us talking about, you know, just different things. It could be radio things, it could be political things, or it could be about the, you know, we have very similar taste in movies and we do watch the same movies over and over and over again. So I'll get a text from him and he'll be throwing out a quote from Apollo 13. And then I know exactly what about, and then I'll hit him with a Shawshank quote. So
nice. I'm so glad you shared. That was going to be my next question was, well, now I need to know like a handful of movies that you both watch all the time because we're movie people too.
Well, I know for JR that he's got some on rotation, The American President, The Fugitive. But yeah, Apollo 13 and Shawshank are the two that we share probably the most. There's others, I'm sure, but those were the two main ones that we share. I watch a lot of friggin' movies, so you know, my list would be very voluminous, I'm afraid.
I sat there. It was early Friday morning, and Rosanna's a nighttime cook, and she was thinking about putting cookies together for staff. She did. And she says, you know what? I'll wait till Monday. I go, great. Anyway, I'm up. The Martian was on, and it's the point of The Martian where Matt Damon is going to take off from Mars, and I go, oh well, I have to watch this.
Yeah.
You know, okay, Houston, we've got him. And I'm like, okay, I've got to sit and watch, and then I ended up prepping sports I have to do sports for my.
You know how many
show.
times I've watched The Martian?
It's
and
so good.
I did, and same. It's like if I'm flipping channels and it's on wherever it is, I'll watch it and I'll probably watch it to the end.
Everybody is excellent in it. Everybody.
It's just all the way around. That's just a great movie.
Yes.
Again, Mandee, I've got way too many. It's like too many movies. Just
That's okay. We could do a whole podcast on movies sometime, John, if you want to.
The Gorge.
Yeah.
The Gorge. The Gorge.
The Gorge?
The Gorge.
I have seen The Gorge.
With Miles Teller and
And the
Anya
girl
Taylor-Joy.
from, Queen's Gambit, whose name I can never remember.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet.
It's good.
It's good.
It's
on one of the platforms, right? One of the streaming platforms
Yeah,
right
it's
now?
on Apple Plus. And
Okay.
you think it's just going to be a monster movie, but there's other things. It's,
It's great storytelling.
love, true love. I crossed over there.
You did.
It's very different. Yeah, it's a romantic comedy mixed with action. So
Yeah.
Okay. I might have to give that one a try then.
have you not a movie, but have you tried Severance? Yeah.
I tried it.
What did you think?
It's hard for me to connect with them.
I am so far down the rabbit hole
Are
on
you?
that.
I
And
think I
just-
made it
I
like
scratched my head after the episode, and then I watched TikTok people that are theorizing on what it all means, and I let them explain it. 'Cause
that
I'm
might
not
help me
smart.
though. That might help me because I think it's over my head, and that frustrates me. Like I don't know. I think I made it through like maybe 3 episodes, and it was probably a timing thing because I think I was trying to like do laundry at the same time that I was trying to watch the show, and I feel like you have to like really watch Severance. You can't really
You
like
kinda do.
passively do other things and understand what's going on.
Right. It's definitely not a passive watch, but even watching it very actively, I'm still like, what the heck did I just see? And then somebody explained it on TikTok, and I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But I think they're just making stuff up too. But
I'll have to give it another shot.
Plausible as anything. It just seems like there's just a ton of Easter eggs in that show, based on what all of the followers of it say.
I typically like things like that. The Easter eggs, though, you mentioned Easter eggs. Ted Lasso is like that for me. I think I've watched all 3 seasons maybe 3 times because there are so many little jokes and Easter eggs that just follow throughout the whole series that I pick up something new every time I watch it.
Is it Roy? Was it Roy?
Which time?
No, Liam. Laughing Liam. That was it.
Yeah.
I've only watched Ted Lasso one time all the way through.
Yeah.
And I haven't revisited, although I've thought about it because it was a great show, but also I think if you're ever in a point where you're just frustrated with life, I think watching Ted Lasso and the attitude of the Ted Lasso character will pull you out of that funk and make you look at things in a positive way.
And now you know why I've watched it 3 times, John.
There you go.
It's been a challenging few years.
Well, I know you haven't watched Shrinking. John, have you watched Shrinking?
I've seen the first season.
Great show. And having Harrison Ford drop comedy F-bombs, it's worth the price of admission.
It's fantastic. And I'm a big fan of like dialing up YouTube and looking at, for instance, Comic-Con or whatever, and they'll have like the whole cast in there, Harrison Ford and everybody. And I love those things. I tend to get more hooked on when people are doing interviews and go, I like you so much as an interview, I'm going to patronize your show. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I do that too.
The dialogue is just so on point, hilarious in that show.
I do need to catch up on season 2, Chuck. I've watched season 1. I'm trying to convince my husband to watch season 1 so we can watch season 2 together. But I don't think he's watched enough. He has a tendency to sometimes fall asleep in the evenings when I turn on the TV.
Who would do that? Oh, God, I'm bad at that.
But it's one of those that it's like if you're not invested in it, again, it's like you won't get the jokes later in the season if you don't watch the first episode. You kind of need to see the character development. And so anyway, that's part of why I've been on hold with season 2. That, and when it first came out, I didn't want to watch the first episode because I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to have to wait for the next week. And I think that one comes out serially, like old school.
Yeah.
That's the evolution of TV from, from way back where it was like every show was kind of single serving and you just watch a show, you like the show or whatever. And now it's like, if you don't watch all of the episodes, you may not know what's going on. You might be not understanding a plot line or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it is different. I've gone back and watched some. I went back and watched West Wing this fall when it was on HBO Max, and you could get away with that. You could get away with skipping episodes and still understand what was going on in the 90s when you watched that show. But I mean, you might miss some nuances, right? But you really could kind of follow what the purpose was. But you're right. Now, and it, like shows like Shrinking, Severance, Lasso, if you miss something, you miss something pretty big.
We just picked up Max, and Rosanna picked it up for something specific new.
White Lotus,
and then there was something else, and I forgot what it was. Except this morning, she says to me, she goes, "They have Johnny Quest," and I go, "Johnny Quest?" Yes.
Wow.
I love Johnny Quest. You know who Johnny Quest is?
I do know who Johnny Quest is.
Johnny Quest. It should have been a live series, But then you've seen Johnny Quest, right, John?
I probably
on the Cartoon Network back in the day, maybe late at night.
I probably have. I mean, his name is John Q, so I probably dabbled a little bit there. You mentioned White Lotus too, and 2 episodes in this season, and I'm already down the rabbit hole. So.
I haven't started that one for the same reason too. Like I don't want to have to wait till Sunday, so I've been delaying my start on it. But some of
it's a good strategy though, because you're going to want to binge watch.
Yes.
You can watch a couple episodes in a row, because waiting a week sucks.
Yeah, it does. And with that series, crazy things happen. So we watched the first season. I think maybe it had been out for like 2 or 3 years by the time we watched the first one. And when we did, it was that we had to watch 2 or 3 episodes a night because we were like, what the just happened? This is insane. And so Aaron, my husband, noticed. He was like, is White Lotus back? And I was like, yeah, but we can't start it yet. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm not waiting weeks. I'm not waiting a week in between. We got to wait to start it so that we can watch a few episodes at a time. And he's just like, whatever.
We have that anxiety with Reacher.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Aaron's just here in Mandee's world, man.
Yeah.
Like,
When it comes to TV, yes, I'm in his world in other ways. He's bass fishing today, so he is totally in his element, having a blast on Lake Tyler.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
What have we missed? What have we missed, Mandee? Anything?
Oh gosh,
John?
I don't know, but I've enjoyed this immensely. Thank you so much for your time.
I am honored that you asked me to be a part of this. This is so much fun.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, I'm just real proud of my son who works for American Airlines. That's it.
Is he flying? Is he a pilot?
No, he writes software for them.
Wow.
Well, that's really cool. Is he based in Dallas?
Yeah.
Nice.
So the fact that he works for the airline, so he can come up here and visit me whenever he wants to, as long as there's a flight available that he can get on.
Hey, he didn't do the hey Dad, how do I get into radio talk? Did you have to do that one?
He has so little interest in what I do. And even, for like shows, I'll be like, hey, do you, we're going to, I got tickets for Taylor Swift. Nah, it's okay.
Wow.
Yeah, he's not into it.
What's he into?
He is into music, but his music is more eclectic. He's a whale of an artist. And he just has he's got a group of friends that their jokes don't make any sense to me, but they laugh uproariously. They're just all just really, really smart, but they have kind of their own language that they speak.
Well, that's
And
impressive.
he is into rock climbing now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, at the rock climbing gym. I don't think he's ever gone out and actually climbed a rock, but he does the rock climbing gym, and he's getting pretty good at it.
That's an intense workout. That's something that I aspire to. I have some friends that do it. I haven't done it yet, but it's sort of on my bucket list is to climb one of those walls because it requires some muscles that you don't think you have.
Yeah,
in your hands and feet.
I did it with him once.
Yeah.
And I did the beginner wall, and I managed to climb the wall, but I got done and I was like, I gotta sit down.
Yeah,
I am out of breath.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that with us, John. That's awesome.
My pleasure.
My list is so small. It's like not limping to the John at 3:00 in the morning pee break. That's what 66 feels like, kids. But seriously, John, thanks for taking your time. He is Trapper John Morris on the Unknown Morning Show. Thanks a lot for being with us this morning. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
This has been another episode of the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
gear,
And the gearheads that use the gear.
and making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.